It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome to the program. We have Senator Linda Collins-Smith is back with us. Linda, thanks so much for coming on the program this morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So proud to be with you all.
Yes, it's always great to have you on. Now, I wanted to have you on because there's an issue that's on the ballot this coming up this November. It's issue 3, and it's going to reduce the terms a legislator can serve in office from 16 years down to 10 years. And there's a lot of mixed feelings about this. And I understand that you don't think it's a good idea. There are other legislators that agree with you, and so I just wanted to give you the opportunity to come on the program and make your case as to why you don't think it's a good idea.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Like I said, Paul, I've listened to you for lots of years and love your show and love what Conduit News does. And so I just want to say that. And so with all respect, I just disagree that term limits are a good idea. First of all, I want us to quit having government be in our business. And so every time, you have to make decisions. So is term limit going to help that, or is term limit not going to help that? I say that it hurts us. And I've watched that. But I want to say, first of all, I just think it's my right to decide who I want to vote for. And so limiting that doesn't make sense to me. If I have a good legislator, or whoever I'm voting for, if I have a good legislator specifically that we're talking about, then I want to be able to continue to vote for them. And so I ask you this, Paul, after listening to your show and the arguments, for term limits, I want to tell you that I'm against them. It should be my right to vote for a legislator that I like. And if I want to keep them, then I'm going to fight to keep them. We have natural term limits called vote them in and vote them out. If you don't believe that, Senator Collins-Smith was a state rep once, and then she did not win a Senate race and turned around and ran again and won. And a natural term limit was the senator was not reelected. There are many people, even across the state, that are saddened that their senator was not reelected. But that's a natural term limit. But I fight for the right of the people. And I think that there's no one can argue that I'm not just about Linda.
So are you arguing against no term limits at all, or are you arguing against the period of 10 years just being too short?
Well, I could say that 10 years is too short. I could, which I believe that it is, and I'll talk about that in a minute. That's to be specific. The other thing is, I think that a term is I vote them in and I vote them out. That's what people should do. They should pay attention. They should go out and find out who to vote for. If they really like those legislators, if you have a legislator, Paul, that you could keep in there, would you vote to keep that legislator? Would you not want that legislator to stay if you could vote for them and keep them? And they're doing a good job. If they're not doing anything that causes you to want to vote them out, I mean, would you think that those people that did pay attention and did go to the polls, that 18% that wanted to keep Senator, for instance, they're pretty saddened that the other folks did not go to the polls. And so if you could, you see what I'm saying? Now, that's I want to say 10 years. I want to talk about that in a minute specifically. But a term is vote them in and vote them out. But the people have responsibility. And, Paul, they've got to go to the polls. They have to pay attention. Don't put all of this on the legislators. The people didn't pay attention before. I campaigned very hard when the terms were on the ballot for longer terms, when I was running for office. And so I'm going to tell you, I worked hard against that bill, not because, not just the terms was in it, though. It was a horrible bill. Horrible bill. It wasn't just about term limits. So there's a lot of reasons to kill that bill. A lot.
So, I understand, and I have said for a long time now, well, I don't know how long we've been debating this particular issue, I guess ever since they got the signatures required to be on the ballot. I think you can make a reasoned argument for both sides of this. So I understand your logic. Yes, you will lose, and I see the point. You will lose good legislators who are doing a good job. They're not going to be able to serve as long. But you're also going to lose bad legislators who, through the power of incumbency, are doing things that are not in the will of the people. And with 18% voter turnout, there's an argument to be made that people need to get out and they need to, have more control over their government. But in terms, I see that point, that there is sort of a political triage where you kind of have to realize that, yeah, you will lose the good ones, but you know what? You're also going to get rid of the bad ones. And right now, and from my standpoint, Linda, there's not a lot of Linda Collins Smiths in the legislature. I think there's a lot of big government people that need to go home.
So are you okay with throwing the baby out with the bathwater?
Well, you're still able to serve a decade, so we're not. I don't think we're throwing the baby out, because we're still able to serve a whole decade, and that would be my next point would be, what about the idea of a career politician? There's a lot of people that are uncomfortable with career politicians. Go ahead.
Yes, and so I would say that would be that mentality of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, that works. I don't think it works, and here's the thing: we'll talk about the decade. I don't care if they serve a decade if they're doing their job I elected them to do. That's my right to vote for them. Vote them in or vote them out. If they do a great job, why do I want to vote them out? If they're not criminals? Now, here's what I think happened. In the first round, and this term limits was on the ballot, and what I really believe is people are mad at John Wood.
Yes, they
are. They are mad at him more than anything. If you want to know the truth, that is what I believe. That's what I hear. Because, see, the truth is, do you realize that when there were no term limits, we had criminals in the legislature? When there was term limits, we had criminals in the legislature. And you're going to cut it down to a few years in comparison. And do you not think you're still going to have criminals in the legislature? You will have criminals in the legislature or wherever if they choose to be. So I do not agree that shortening the term limits is going to help on the legislature side. What I do believe is this: the longer you are in the legislature, there could be more risk of, for instance, it's harder to get rid of someone. And when I say that is, when you look at, especially where there are no term limits, incumbency, it is harder naturally, even if you're doing a good job, I guess, to get rid of a legislature. But is it, Paul, because Senator Colin Smith left? I'm not there any longer. Brian King, Senator King, is not there, and he's a good conservative. If I could vote across the state here, and I could vote for Senator King, guess who I would have voted for? Senator King.
Right.
I would have voted to kept him in there. Why? Because what is it that he's voting on that, do I like the way he votes? Yes, and you've got to look at your overall votes. Yes, I do. Will I ever disagree? Yes, I will, but I promise you, changing your legislator out and them not knowing what's going on. I'm going to give you an example of why the short term limits are murder for the people. Look at in 2011 and 12 when I was in the House, some issue came about, and I can't remember the issue, so don't hold me to the issue specific. But in the last session, I jumped up out of my seat and I ran back to Senator Rice, because Senator Rice was easy to get to. Because remember, seats come early in the Senate when they're calling you out by alphabetical order to vote. I read a bill. I jumped up out of my seat. I read back, as we were reading it, ran back to Senator Rice. Did we do this in the House? Senator Rice, didn't we do this in the House? He goes, Linda, I think you're right. So he said, go ask another senator. And I did as fast as I could. And seats came. Senator Clark had already voted. Senator Colin Smith. And I yelled, no, because that's all I had time. It was so fast for us on that issue. Something in my mind reminded me, we've already done that. Had I not remembered that, had I not been in the House, we wouldn't know that. That bill would have passed. But as I said no loud, somebody knew something was wrong. And as those legislators that I had already talked to, and some of us voted no, we were able to kill that bill. And so why those things can happen, they can slip past you. You're going to have a whole lot more of that. And I remember my first term in the House, that by the time I got to the Senate, I had learned a whole lot more. And you remember many, many things that have gone on. Well, if you're paying attention, or you hope you remember, if we can all have good memory, you're hoping you catch those things. Because someone might be trying to slip something past you. And, imagine that a legislator would do that.
So is the system so complex that it's just not possible to serve the people in a 10-year span? I mean, because that I don't dispute what you say, and I'm glad you caught. I'm sure whatever you caught was really good that you caught it, because I know you're a conservative. So I mean, do you think there'd ever be a way to reform government to the point where 10 years would be enough, in your opinion?
Well, then are you going to reform government so that you don't have the same bureaucrats in government and the executive branch? Because that's where they push that power. They know where those line item dollars are. They know where everything's at. So when you talk about the good or the bad, or is it good or bad, or it's their idea of what's good, let's say it that way, okay? Let's say someone else says, this is my idea of what's right. I don't always agree with Governor Hutchinson, as you know, and if I could change a few things in Medicaid and the funding of that by any name, any of the 4 names we've called Obamacare, if I could change some of that, I would. And some of that, I think, has been, you look at how powerful the governor was on the line item issue that we all, just if you paid attention to that on the line item veto issue, that just sickens some people. It just sickens, but not everyone pays attention to that. If you've got legislators who are trying to fight it, which we did, we were not successful. We tried hard. It was like a battle. It was like blood drawn on the Senate floor, and it was just disturbing and sickening, and it was so sad. And so you think about that. Had you not had some background about things and people that have paid attention, maybe that's not the exact perfect example, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah,
You've got to have people willing to fight, willing to stand up and say, hey, this is wrong. We did that. And if you don't have that and you don't have the history, you see what you're losing? Do you not love that we have the history of David Ferguson, 30-something years in the legislature? What do you think is going to happen when you don't have any history, when none of the legislators have any history past 8 years?
There definitely is an advantage to having David Ferguson's work at the Bureau of Legislative Research. He certainly is a wealth of knowledge there. Well, so let me ask you this, because my contention would be, with the term limits as there are now, or I'm sorry, with the term limits as they could be if the thing passes to 10 years, I feel like you're going to lose more big government politicians than you would smaller government politicians. So that being said, right now, Senator Linda Collins-Smith, I mean, how many actual conservatives that believe in the Republican Party platform are there right now in Little Rock? I guess. I mean, what percentage do you think that there are? I mean, you don't have to give me a specific percentage, but
yeah.
So,
I guess I can only be sitting in the Senate. Of course, I'll tell you what. Think about the bills that passed last session. We passed. We literally didn't have to. We did. We expanded Medicaid again.
Yep.
It's a horrible. I was just so saddened because that's a bill we didn't even have to address. We didn't even have to have it on the calendar. So we have quite a few, and people wear down, and so sometimes that's what it is. But if you have enough conservatives, there's strength in numbers, and so I think that I couldn't give you the percentage. But I want you to think of this: the House versus. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say the only reason I say that is because, to me, once you run as a Republican, this is just how I see it. 10 years would be better, and I know you disagree, but once you run as a Republican, and then once you go back on what you said, which we've seen time and time again, we see all these justifications for these bigger government. If the faster we can get you out of there and term limit you out and get somebody else in there who's going to run as a Republican, who's going to claim that the Republican Party platform is what they believe in, I just feel like that would be better. Like to give somebody else an opportunity to actually keep their word to the people, because what we have seen in Arkansas time and time again, over the last almost 10 years now, is really, saying one thing that's popular with the electorate, but then coming back to them with excuses, and then those people wind up in leadership. And so, anyway, go ahead. I'll give you the floor.
Okay. All right. That exact thing that you just said, what good does it do then if that's the majority and they're going to lie to you? Why change them out at all? because all you're doing is rotating the dollars. At least you have some history in there. You know, they have some institutional knowledge. For instance, what you just said was that you can kick them all out. They're going to lie to you, and if they're going to lie to you, why have elections? Why not other people? You know, but truthfully, isn't the answer that the people pay attention and go vote? Isn't that really where it has to lie? Because just changing them out based on what you just said ain't going to do any good. The next round are going to be lying to us when they go out and run.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming that
eventually. If they lie to your face.
Yeah, I'm assuming that we get these incumbents out and we have the possibility of putting somebody who's honest in there that actually believes in what they campaign on. That's my
Has
hypothesis.
that worked for you? But has it worked for you?
Well, right now, I mean, we've got way more big government people down there than we do, and they're able to serve, 16 years. And so that's
what do you think? Every 2 years they change out in the House. It's the same difference. No institutional knowledge right now because too many change out already. We're already seeing that just over the last few years.
Well, is it possible, do you think, to be down there too long? I mean,
do I believe that you can be there too long? Yes, and I think I stated that it may be harder to get it in coming out. That you naturally have things that have been done that could make it hard to get people out. Yes, I do, but I still think that I don't want to trade my right to vote the person that I want to. I don't want to do that trade-off. I want to be able to vote for the person that I choose, not because I'm forced them out and I've got to start all over again. I don't even know who they are for a few years. They don't even have a voting record, Paul, for a few years. You can't even tell what kind of people they are. Well, you can a few people. You and I know that. But I guess what I'm saying is you've really got to learn what that – you can learn a lot about a legislator in just a little, in a little bit of time. But it usually takes more than a session. We don't typically want to send people to Washington in a house for one term. You want to give them a chance to learn. Will they do better next time? Did they see their voting record? I'll tell you one of the best things that I've ever seen is I thought was the voting record. Someone saying, hey, I don't agree with you. If you vote this way, you know you're voting for big government.
Senator Linda Collins-Smith, it's always great to have you on. I appreciate you coming on and giving us your honest opinion about this, and I respect it. And again, I believe you can make reasoned arguments to why it's a bad idea to go from 16 to 10. And I think you can make arguments on the other side as well. So I really appreciate it. It's always great to have you on.
Thank you, Paul. Bye, everyone.
Okay, folks, we have got to go to break, and we'll be back in just a moment.